Beginning of Book. Standard Player User Guide. Section 1. Welcome. Welcome to your new Talking Book Player Standard Player User Guide. This audio booklet will guide you through the various features the player has to offer, discuss where the buttons are located and their functions, and describe how to use the player and how to read books. Section 2. Contents of the box. When you open your Talking Book Player box, here is what you will find: a series of instruction sheets, the player, and packing materials. The instruction sheets, in large print, comprise a list of important safety instructions and a Quick Start Guide. The Quick Start Guide, embossed in Braille, is also included. All instruction sheets should be saved for reference. Your player came packaged with protective foam caps on either end of the player and a protective plastic bag covering the player. Please save these packaging materials, including the box, should you ever need to return your player for servicing. Section 3. Introducing your new Talking Book Player. Let's begin with a tour of your new Talking Book Player. Please place the player in front of you. The retractable carrying handle should be facing you, and the power cord should be at the back. The handle is light gray in color to contrast with the body of the player. The power cord is stored in the enclosure at the back of the player. To plug in the player, unfold the power cord and plug it into a power outlet. Note that the player will turn on automatically when you plug it into the power outlet. Above the handle is an opening where you will insert the book cartridge that you will receive in the mail from the library. We will discuss how to play a book in a later section. A headphone connector jack is on the right side of the player near the front. Headphones are not included. The player has a built-in speaker, so using headphones is optional. If you do plug in headphones, the built-in speaker will be silent. On the right side, behind the headphone jack, is a connector port covered with a cap. This is an optional connection for a remote access control to assist physically disabled persons who cannot use the player's button controls. Conventional USB flash memory drives may also be plugged into this connector to play books obtained from the library via the Internet. Finally, on the bottom of the player, near the front, are two recessed bars for attaching a shoulder strap. A shoulder strap is not supplied. Section 3.1. Power. Now let's explore the top surface of the player. This is where the control buttons and the speaker are located. Near the front, on the left side, is a round red button. It is surrounded by a raised ridge. This is the power button. The letter P appears in Braille next to this power button. You will use the power button to turn the player on and off. Section 3.2. Play, Stop. At the front of the player, in the middle, is a large green rectangular button. This is the Play Stop button. The Play Stop button is labeled with the letter P in Braille. Press the Play Stop button once to start playing the book. If the book is already playing, or if the player is speaking a message, you can press this same Play Stop button to stop playing. Pressing and holding down the Play Stop button will enter and exit the built-in user guide. The user guide can be accessed at any time the player is turned on. A book need not be present to use the user guide. Section 3.3. Rewind. To the left of the Play Stop button, you will find the Rewind button. It is light gray in color, and it is shaped like a triangle pointing toward the left. The edges of the left point of the Rewind button are raised. The Rewind button is labeled with the letter R in Braille. The Rewind button is used to move the reading position backward. Tap the Rewind button once to move backward 5 seconds in the book. Press and hold the Rewind button to move back further in the book. The longer you hold the button down, the more quickly you will move backward. The player will tell you how far the reading position has moved. If you hold down the Rewind button for 10 seconds, you will back up 15 minutes in the book. If you hold down the Rewind button longer than 10 seconds, the reading position will continue moving, progressively faster, back to the previous chapter, where it will then move from chapter to chapter. You will hear a beep at the start of each chapter. If you hold down the Rewind button long enough, you will reach the beginning of the book. When you release the Rewind button, immediately after hearing a chapter beep, the player will announce the name of that chapter and play from its beginning. If the player was stopped prior to pressing the rewind button, you will need to press the play button to hear the book. It is not necessary to rewind the book before returning it to the library. Section 3.4. Fast Forward. To the right of the Play Stop button, you will find the Fast Forward button. It is light gray in color, and it is shaped like a triangle pointing toward the right. The edges of the right point of the Fast Forward button are raised. The Fast Forward button is labeled with the letter F in Braille. The Fast Forward button is used to move the reading position forward. Tap the Fast Forward button once to move forward 5 seconds in the book. Press and hold the Fast Forward button to move further forward in the book. The longer you hold the button down, the more quickly you will move forward. The player will tell you how far the reading position has moved. If you hold down the Fast Forward button for 10 seconds, you will advance 15 minutes in the book. If you hold down the Fast Forward button longer than 10 seconds, the reading position will continue moving progressively faster to the next chapter, where it will then move from chapter to chapter. You will hear a beep at the start of each chapter. If you hold down the Fast Forward button long enough, you will reach the end of the book. When you release the Fast Forward button after moving to a different chapter, the player will announce the name of that chapter and play from its beginning. If the player was stopped prior to pressing the Fast Forward button, you will need to press the play button to hear the book. Section 3.5. Volume Up and Down. To the right of the Fast Forward button, you will find the volume buttons. The two buttons are yellow and shaped like rounded triangles. The rounded edge of each volume button is raised. The letter V appears in Braille next to the volume buttons. The lower button, the button pointing toward the handle, is the volume down button. When listening to a book, press the volume down button to lower the volume by 1 level. There are 15 volume levels. Note that you cannot turn the volume off completely. A double beep will inform you when you have reached minimum volume. Above the volume down button, you will find the volume up button. It is yellow and is shaped like a rounded triangle pointing toward the back of the player. When listening to a book, press the volume up button to raise the volume by 1 level. There are 15 volume levels. A double beep will inform you when you have reached maximum volume. Section 3.6. Sleep. Directly above the Play Stop button, you will find a gray crescent-shaped button. This is the Sleep button. The Sleep button is labeled with the letter S in Braille. This Sleep button is used to play the book for a time and then stop. You can set the length of time to play in increments of 15 minutes up to 1 hour. This feature can be useful when you think you may fall asleep with the player on and do not wish to lose your place in the book. Pressing the Sleep button once will play the book for 15 minutes. Pressing the Sleep button twice in succession will play for 30 minutes, 3 times, 45 minutes, and 4 times for 1 hour. Each time you press the Sleep button after a pause of several seconds, the timer will be reset to 15 minutes. Pressing the Stop button cancels the sleep timer. Section 3.7. Tone Up and Down. Now, moving to the top half of the player, you will find on the left side of the central speaker 2 buttons shaped like rounded triangles pointing up and down. These are the Tone Up and Tone Down buttons. They are light gray in color. The rounded edge of each tone button is raised. The letter T appears in Braille next to these tone buttons. You can use these tone buttons to adjust the tone of the reading voice. There are 11 levels of tone. A single beep will inform you when you have reached the normal level, and a double beep will tell you that you have reached the minimum or maximum level. The tone setting of each book can be adjusted to suit your preference and the narrator's voice. Section 3.8. Speed Up and Down. To the right of the central speaker, you will find 2 buttons shaped like rounded triangles pointing up and down. These are the Speed Up and Down buttons. They are light gray in color. The letter S appears in Braille next to the speed buttons. You can use these speed buttons to adjust the speed of the reading voice. There are 16 levels of speed. A single beep will inform you when you have reached the normal level, and a double beep will tell you that you have reached the minimum or maximum level. The speed setting of each book can be adjusted to suit your preference and the narrator's pace. This concludes the description of the standard buttons. An advanced player with additional functions is available. Please contact your local library for more information. Section 3.9, Button Describer Mode. The player can quickly remind you of what each control button is and what the button does. This feature is called the Button Describer Mode. The button describer is active any time the player is turned on and there is no book cartridge loaded. Simply press the button you are curious about, and the player will announce its name and how to use it. So, when you are reading and wish to remind yourself about any of the buttons, simply pull out the book cartridge and press the button you want to know more about. When you are ready to continue reading again, simply push the book cartridge back into the player. The player will remember your place in the book. Section 3.10, Bookshelf Mode. The cartridges you receive from the library will almost always contain a single book. However, a single cartridge may contain many books. When a multi-book cartridge is inserted in the player, you will hear an announcement telling you the number of books it contains. Initially, the first book is selected. To review the books contained on the cartridge and to select a different book, enter the Bookshelf mode. You can access the Bookshelf mode by pressing and holding the Play Stop button while a multi-book cartridge is present in the player. While in Bookshelf mode, you can use the Rewind button to navigate to the previous title and the Fast Forward button to navigate to the next title on the cartridge. You can select a book by pressing the Play Stop button when you hear the title. The player will remember the book you selected even if the cartridge is removed from the player. The user guide will always be the first book available upon entering Bookshelf mode. The next section of this user guide will discuss the book cartridge. If you wish to exit the user guide now, press and hold the Play Stop button. You can return at any time to the user guide where you left off by pressing and holding the Play Stop button. Section 4, Book Cartridges and Containers. Section 4.1, Cartridge Container. Book cartridges are sent through the mail in blue plastic containers. The containers are held closed by two plastic tabs on one of the short edges. To open, find the two depressions in the top surface and pull the plastic tabs up until they pop out. You can now open the hinged container to remove the book cartridge. When returning the book cartridge to the library, place the cartridge back into the container, label side up, close the lid, and snap down the two plastic tabs. The address card on the bottom face of the container has the library's return address printed on the reverse side. Remove the card from the container, turn it around so that the library's address is showing on the outside, and replace the card into the plastic edge guides of the container's bottom face. When orientated correctly for returning to the library, the address card will have a small hole punched in the top left corner, or have this corner beveled. Section 4.2, Description of Book Cartridge. The books you will receive in the mail will be on small plastic cartridges about the size of an audio cassette. However, unlike cassettes, the entire book will be on a single cartridge for nearly all books. A book cartridge is white in color to contrast with the player and rectangular in shape. The top surface is flat, and there is a print braille label on the top for the book title, author, and book number. The bottom surface has angles on the side edges. One end of the cartridge has a finger hole. This is to make it easier to insert the cartridge and to remove it from the player. Section 4.3, Inserting and removing the book cartridge from the player. Book cartridges are shaped so that they can only be inserted the correct way. To insert the cartridge in the player, make sure the flat, rectangular top surface with the print braille label is facing up. Insert the end that does not have the finger hole into the player's cartridge slot. The player's cartridge slot is located above the player's retractable carrying handle and under the Play Stop button. Push the cartridge in firmly. The cartridge will snap into place and the book will begin to play. To remove the cartridge, gently tug on the finger hole and pull the cartridge out. Section 4.4, Books from the Internet. In addition to the delivery of book cartridges by mail, books are available from your library electronically through the Internet. By this means, the entire catalog of books and magazines is available to access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. To take advantage of this alternate method of receiving books, a computer and a high-speed Internet connection are required. Once you have been signed up by your library for access, Books can be downloaded from the library's website to your computer. To play the books on this player, copy the files from the computer to a cartridge or a conventional USB flash drive. You can download and copy many books to a single large-capacity USB flash drive and use the bookshelf mode to select the book to read. If you have a broadband internet connection and wish to apply to receive books electronically on demand, visit the library website at bard.loc.gov. Section 5. Battery Operation. This player is equipped with a built-in rechargeable battery. This means that it does not always have to be plugged into the wall outlet to be usable. However, you have to plug the player in from time to time to recharge the battery. When the battery is fully charged, you will have well over 20 hours of playtime. The player's battery automatically charges itself whenever the stored charge has declined significantly and player is plugged into a wall outlet. Note that the battery is not charged every time the player is connected to the power outlet, so you may notice a reduction in available capacity reported before the player will recharge. It takes about 2.5 hours to fully charge a completely discharged battery. You will be able to use the player normally when the battery is recharging. It will not harm the player or battery to leave the player plugged into a wall outlet at all times. If the player is running on battery and not playing a book, it will automatically power off after 30 minutes to save battery power. Note that the battery is sealed and can only be changed by a service technician. The next section of this user guide contains important safety information. If you wish to exit the user guide now, press and hold the Play Stop button. You can return to the user guide where you left off at any time by pressing and holding the Play Stop button. Section 6. Important Safety Instructions. 1. Heed all warnings. 2. Follow all instructions. 3. Do not use this apparatus near water. 4. Clean only with a dry cloth. 5. Install in accordance with the library's instructions. 6. Do not install near any heat sources, such as radiators, heat registers, stoves, or other apparatus, including amplifiers, that produce heat. 7. Protect the power cord from being walked on or pinched, particularly at plugs, convenience receptacles, and the point where they exit from the apparatus. 8. Use only attachments, accessories specified by the library. 9. Unplug the apparatus during lightning storms or when unused for long periods of time. 10. Refer all servicing to qualified service personnel. Servicing is required when the apparatus has been damaged in any way, such as power supply cord or plug is damaged, liquid has been spilled or objects have fallen into the apparatus, the apparatus has been exposed to rain or moisture, does not operate normally, or has been dropped. 11. Do not expose the battery pack to excessive heat, such as sunshine, fire, or the like. 12. The mains plug is used as a disconnect device. The mains plug shall remain readily operable. Warning. To reduce the risk of fire or electric shock, do not expose the apparatus to rain or moisture. Do not use the product around water or in high moisture environments, such as a bathroom after a shower. Never immerse the player in water or splash water on it. If the player gets wet, discontinue use immediately. Caution. There is a risk of electrical shock if the player is opened. Do not open the player. There are no user-serviceable parts in the player. To avoid possible electric shock, do not insert objects other than cartridges or cable connectors into the player. Clean with a dry cloth or cloth dampened with mild detergent cleaning solution. Do not apply cleaning solutions directly to player. Do not use abrasive cleaners or flammable solvents. Unplug player from the wall outlet prior to cleaning. Protect the power cord from being walked on or pinched, particularly at the plug and at the point where it exits from the player. A loose power cord may create a tripping hazard. Tuck unused portions of the power cord into the back of the player. Store the cord in the cord storage area to avoid tripping on it during transport. To avoid injury caused by a falling player, always place it on a stable, horizontal, flat, dry surface and keep the non-skid feet clean. Refer all servicing to qualified service personnel. Servicing is required when the player is not operating normally or has been damaged. Examples of such damage may include power cord or plug mutilation, liquids spilled into the player, and exposure of the player to rain or excessive moisture. To avoid high heat buildup, never cover the player with a blanket or clothing when the player is on or connected to AC power. If the keypad buttons are damaged, do not use the player. Do not insert anything into the holes or receptacles. Return the damaged player for service and request a replacement player. The battery pack cannot be replaced by patrons. If the player does not play on batteries after being charged, return the player to your library for service. When packaging a player for shipping, tape the carton closed to prevent the package from opening. We will now move on to the next section of this manual. If you wish to exit the user guide, press and hold the Play Stop button for 2 seconds. You can return to the user guide where you left off at any time by pressing and holding the Play Stop button for 2 seconds. Section 7. Federal Communications Commission FCC Statement. Note: this equipment has been tested and found to comply with the limits for a Class B digital device, pursuant to Part 15 of the FCC rules. These limits are designed to provide reasonable protection against harmful interference in a residential installation. This can radiate radio frequency energy and, if not installed and used in accordance with the instructions, may cause harmful interference to radio communications. However, there is no guarantee that interference will not occur in a particular installation. If this equipment does cause harmful interference to radio or television reception, which can be determined by turning the equipment off and on, the user is encouraged to try to correct the interference by one or more of the following measures. Reorient or relocate the receiving antenna. Increase the separation between the equipment and receiver. Connect the equipment into an outlet on a circuit different from that to which the receiver is connected. Consult your library for help. Unauthorized changes or modifications could void the user's authority to operate the equipment. This device complies with Part 15 of the FCC rules. Operation is subject to the following 2 conditions. 1. This device may not cause harmful interferences, and 2. This device must accept any interference received, including interference that may cause undesired operation. Section 8. Customer Support. For further assistance with your player or the Talking Book program, please contact your local library. Should you encounter problems with the player and suspect that it may be faulty, your local library will help you to determine if a replacement player is required. Books and magazines for your Talking Book player may be obtained from your library via the mail, or may be directly downloaded from the Internet. Your local library can also assist you in the selection of books to play on your machine, and in obtaining books by mail and via the Internet. Section 9. Appendix. Learning Mode. The Learning Mode allows you to assign player buttons to a remote control device. These remote controls are for patrons who have physical disabilities and are not able to easily operate the buttons on the player itself. Before going into Learning Mode, you must make sure that there is no cartridge in the player. You must also make sure that the remote control device is plugged into the connection port. This connection port is covered by a cap and is located on the right side of the player next to the headphone connector jack. To enter Learning Mode, press and hold the sleep button for 5 seconds. A short message will be heard. You will be asked to press the player's fast forward button to continue, or press the power button to exit Learning Mode. After pressing the fast forward button, you will be asked to press a button on the player. The player will announce the name of the selected button. You will then be asked to select a button on your device that will act like the button selected on the player. Once this step is complete, you can repeat this procedure for each of the player's buttons. When you are finished, press the power button to exit the Learning Mode. The player will remember the button assignments when you next start the player. End of book.